welcome. This is Judd at White Wave Trading Strategies. Today is May 28th. It's the afternoon. We've been looking at a few different instruments today. This morning we started out with the cybersecurity names. I wanted to see if they could make a lower low today in Rigetti and some of these other ones. They couldn't do it, and that was the main feature before the opening today. The one that inflection looked okay, but the one that gave you the best look was D-Wave. Let's see, where did I put that in here? Because yesterday on a Wednesday they came back down and tried to fill this gap from last week and started up, and this is the one I liked. This is the one everybody's piling in. So this is a good look. It's been a big mover, and the technicals have been working in this. So you just have to trade, the sector you like, and then wait for some trade location. And you better have it pre-planned, or you're not going to. You'll miss everything. You'll just be chasing in this market. The other names I liked. We were looking at the metals and miners. Southern Copper has been on fire again. As long as copper itself stays above $6.30, the names will hold. So any decent break in copper should hold. A lot of the board has been trading off of Korea. And that doesn't look like it's going to abate. So I'm not looking I'm really looking for opportunities to buy things. The other thing I was looking at today was the dollar. You have a lot of currencies that are trying to put in bullish patterns, and I'm not buying it. I am not buying it. Yesterday we had a conversation about the euro. I said if you wanted to buy it against 116, go ahead. It doesn't break out until it gets above 119. And why am I saying that? As you can see, the major moving averages up here on a monthly, but that's not the chart you want to look at. You want to look at the quarterly and where the quarterly cloud is, and that basically comes in at 119 and change. So until the euro starts closing up into that area, this is a range trade. The Canadian dollar, the futures got a little bit of a bid today. I think that's a rally to nowhere. Can it go another 20 or 30 cents? Yeah. Am I buying it that this is going to be the bottom of this whole move? I just think it's a trade. So you really have to decide what you're looking at, what you like. The other things, I like this morning. I was talking about was Palo Alto Networks. I thought was a great low yesterday, held this morning. There's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's coming back into cybersecurity. CrowdStrike, that doesn't look to back off. Palantir, that's got potential, because if it starts up tomorrow, and I think they're going to mark this up in a month end and a thin part of the cloud, I think this can get a little steam for 20 bucks, because people are going to start looking around the board for different value propositions, and I think that's one of them. You can see that we had this conversation last week about Supermicro. Could it actually get up and go? And now it's trying to get up and go because this is the laggard. Now, you look at a weekly, and I'm looking at a monthly, can it go anywhere? Well, it could go back to 60 again and be no good. It's just not one of the names I've been focused on. I've been really, trading the Soxhel and Korea, just because, especially the Soxhel, because I like the leverage and it charts well. You just have to hold your nose when you get the opportunities to trade it. Here on the 19th, it came back down to the balance line, gave you the opportunity, and on a Tuesday, and if you didn't buy it, you chase it all the way back up again. So that's kind of my main focus there. I think a couple of interesting charts that I went over. The longer term stuff this is the cash S&P against the cash Dow. This chart goes back to, the 20s. And this is just starting to go. So I like the long side of the S&Ps. The other chart that is interesting is the long NASDAQ futures, since the NASDAQ only goes back to 1998, so you can use the minis. It's coming up into an area. I don't think this is going to be the high, but what I will say about it is that I think going into the end of the quarter, you might see some rebalancing going on here, because everybody's been tech heavy, and tech's been the only thing that's had this monster move. Microsoft, Meta, all the Mag 7 stocks have all traded, off their technicals and are still in a bull trend. Just one's out of favor sometimes. So I think that's, a really interesting way to look at it. And the other chart that, I always go back to, when the when the gold started gaining on the S&Ps out of the bottom of the quarterly cloud, that was the move to 5,400 in the gold. Now you can see that the S&Ps have taken up leadership here in the last 2 months. And we're back up above the 200 quarter moving average. So staying up in here and stabilizing, I think the S&Ps keep leading for a while. So I'm looking at the S&Ps on breaks. And the question is, where's a break? On my long-term point and figure, we could come back down to, closer to 74 and a half. And that would be a low-risk buying area. I'm not looking for the doom and gloom and it's all over. So you just have to be patient and, trade things when you can manage your risk. All right, and the other announcement I have is that on June 18th, I'm holding another matrix class. Do these quarterly, been doing them since fourth quarter 2018. It is basically a compilation of everything I've ever learned about trading, the technicals, how to put together a trade, how to set up a template for price so you know where and when to look and you're not stuck in front of a screen all the time. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing these, but this is a good opportunity to get involved. And you can go to my website at whitewavetradingstrategies.com and get the details, or just reach out and send me an email or call me. That's it for today.